What is going on, everybody? Just going to do a very quick show on a very light DFS night. We do have 2 NBA games and the MLB games. You guys know my strategies for these smaller slates. Get very weird with it and do things differently. So immediately, the first thing I did was cross out 5-man stacks. I don't want any of them on a 4-game slate, which will immediately at least differentiate me from a good portion of the crowd. I changed a few of the pitchers' projections to represent more where Goldie had them at. I didn't actually use Goldie's projections entirely because some of them haven't been updated yet, but I did want to change a little bit where I felt like these guys were being projected, and I actually may have gone a little too high on Kikuchi. Now that I look at it, let's make it 17.2. That sounds about right. Okay. Anyway, so you can see like that I'm going to end up getting different already with my builds. I'm going to rebuild this now and see where it takes me, because I don't think I need. I mean, I'm getting different, but I don't know if I need to get no Verlander. Well, I still think this projection on Verlander is a little bit high, and I think there is a bust path for him against this team, and I'm going to be stacking up some Rockies probably, but I'll go a little bit higher on him. The Barrios keeps like it depends on when I'm building. I haven't touched his projection, and sometimes I keep getting 90% of them, and sometimes I keep getting 10%. I've run a few of these builds, so I'm just going to run my build, talk through this. I'm not playing any FanDuel. There was no tournaments of really any kind of significance over there, so I'm skipping that one. And I'm just double checking I haven't missed anything about the MLB. We know Kristen Campbell was scratched for those of you guys who were playing some Boston. We've had a lot more scratches. Feels like a lot of it's been illnesses, but I don't know. It's just a little surprising. Doesn't usually happen so much in MLB as it does right now. And I'm getting a little alert of something. And all right, I'm going to keep going in a second. So I'll just talk through this. My guess is, again, Philly is clearly the team you want to, like, if you're playing cash games. I think Washington is interesting. On the other side, I feel like they're getting a little bit. I'm just gonna when I run this, I want to make sure I can get to at least a little more Washington than I was. Let's see where Washington ended up. Oh, we're at 20%. Okay. And that's without running the Sims. So let's run the Sims and then see what we end up with. And let's see where we're at pitching wise. So you change these things a little tiny bit, a 1/10 of a percentage point, and man, you get a lot different exposure than you're expecting. All right, let's take a look and see where we end up here. I think I'm going to end up with some Rockies when we run the Sims. That's what I'm going to bet on. Kikuchi, Barrios, and not as much Verlander. And you know why that is? Because it's going to be Rocky stacks. I got a feeling. Yep, 72% Rocky stacks. Now, I could argue that might be a little bit hefty. It is the Rockies in the worst hitters park. So I'm going to just rebuild, and I'm okay with getting some like 2 or 3 men. Let me just make sure the stack types, team stacks types. Let's go to the 5 to 4-man stacks. So we've got. Okay, so I feel better about having like the 3 and the 2-man stacks from Colorado than I do about the 4. So I'm going to cap this at 50 and rerun this. I don't think maybe as just 4-man stacks go, I can lower it there actually as a. Let's make this like 10, and I'll go back, and I don't mind a bunch of 2-mans, but I don't really want the 4-mans as much. So. And let's go to team stacks, all stacks, and we'll make it 60 just to get a little bit funky with it. All right. Again, just little Goldie's stack sorting had Washington at the top. Yeah, interesting, Adam. I do like Washington here. I just don't know that you're getting as different as you'd want. I mean, let's take a quick look at where their ownership's going to be. Whoops. All right. Yeah, they're going to be pretty heavily owned. It's that's the thing that's tough to get away from here. The Phillies actually might be lower owned just because they're so expensive, but it's not that hard to get them in. You're gonna get decent ownership on Boston against Barrios. People do not want to play Toronto. I'm noticing, so I am actually interested in my hand builds, maybe of bumping Toronto up a little bit, and seeing where we're at here at the end of this thing. I like the idea of a little Toronto. I like the idea of, let me just see where Detroit's looking at ownership. That's weird, right? Like, that seems low. Maybe that's the thing to do. the Detroit side of it. I think Detroit and Toronto are my favorite getting different things. And I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff, so it's taking a minute to get this. And then it's going to say, oh, we can't do it. And then I'm going to have to run my sims and it'll be fine. All right, so now it's got, obviously, straight away, you can see Philly, Washington, grayed out to be clearly the best. But I am going to do this. I do want to take a minute and just say, like, I appreciate all the support, and please like and subscribe and all that stuff. But we really appreciate all the support. We've been absolutely crushing it, and we would love for you guys to join us. We are charging just a fraction more than SaberSim right here. And I think that, look, what you're getting extra, like, I mean, literally for a fraction more, we have all of the pay dirt content, which is awesome. Great for both DFS and for sports betting. We have all of Goldie's projections, Sheets' projections, all of my content, Brandon Cruz, Adam Perry. I know I'm missing people here, but we've got a lot of good stuff. And I really hope you guys would take a good look at our site, and when you're trying to decide what DFS sites to use, because I really feel like we have one of the most unique offerings, and it's really good for all types of sports bettors. Anyway, that's where I'm at. Yeah, Boston, Washington, that would be the mega chalk, Robert. I don't want to do that. So I'm not going to, on a 4-game slate, play mega chalk ever. Those of you who know me, I almost usually, like, I'm not going to go so far as to X those teams out because I'm already getting a little different. But I basically don't really want any piece of the heavy chalk. It is hard to see how Philly doesn't score some runs tonight. That's the only thing that's tough. Okay, so there, I got a lot more Detroit. And all right, I'm giving up a little bit of equity, but that's fine. I want to take a shot at trying to win. So my pitching exposure looks like this now. I don't even love Barrios that much, but look, it's trying to get things a little bit different. That's what it's going to do on 4-game slates. You're going to get some wild stuff from SaberSim. And as far as team stacks go, obviously Colorado, but again, as the 4-mans go, it's Detroit, and I like that. I think Detroit is at their ownership. I think that might be the thing to do. Now, the weird part is I actually wanted to play Kikuchi more than these other pitchers. So I'll have Kikuchi in basically all my non-Detroit lineups. That's what it looks like as of right now. We are going to save the contests and load this up, and then I'll talk quickly about the NBA and where I'm at. All right. Also, guys, wanted to remind everybody you can still use the trials multiple times, and as we were offering new things. Once we have the website redone, I think it'll look a lot better. But all the information is there, and you're getting the same stuff, which is all you really care about, right? Is the content. It doesn't really matter what it looks like to you. And you're also in a very exclusive group. I mean, just using Goldie and Sheets' projections has made me so much money through SaberSim. It's just a different way of playing, even from other SaberSim builders. So SaberSim builder with Goldie and Sheets projections have been absolutely awesome, and I would encourage everybody give us a chance. Is what I'm saying. All right, done with baseball for the moment. Did I get all those in? And then we still don't have a Detroit lineup, right? Oh, we do have a Detroit lineup. Let me just make sure everybody's in. I know it tells me if there's any. Oh, it doesn't. No, we don't have a Detroit lineup. Yeah, we don't have a Detroit lineup yet, which again should keep them even lower owned. Hopefully it goes past lock because I like the idea of playing Detroit. All right, moving over to basketball main slate. I'm going to jump in over here and talk through this one real quick. Let me just see. All right. So look, I wanted to get a little bit different. So what I did was I bumped up Malik Beasley. I still feel like he had one game in this series, but I feel like he's going to be lower owned, and I want to take some shots there. And I don't want to play as much Hardaway. I'd rather play more Beasley, Thompson, and Schroeder, which you can see reflected in my lineups right here. A lot of Kawhi on the first runs, and Jokic. I just am not buying that anything below 60 is ever his median score. I know he had 53 in the last game, but look at the other games in the series. He's still averaging like 70. 68, I think maybe. So I'm going to put his medium. I bumped him up a little bit. I bumped up Schroeder. They already had bumped up Porter Jr. to where he should be, which was different than last time. So I'm leaving that one. Westbrook, SaberSim likes him a little better than Goldie does. I tend to kind of agree. Bogdanovich, I think this projection's too high. So I'm actually going to rerun this and go down to 15. I think it's just there's a lot of ways that doesn't work. And I think this should be a little bit higher. So just these little tweaks, and then we're going to rerun things. Maybe I don't need to go so heavy on Beasley. Maybe I don't need to go so heavy on Schroeder. I think we can go down to 21 and rebuild and sort of see what we end up with here. Any questions or thoughts? Adam's saying, okay, yeah, Detroit looks solid, good team, park upgrade. I don't know if it's a park upgrade. I think it's a very fine line to call the Angel Stadium a park upgrade from Detroit. Really depends. Detroit plays well as a hitter's park during the day, bad hitter's park at night. But they play a lot of day games there. So it's a sort of a mixed bag. It's definitely worse than the Angels, but it's pretty close, I would say. Really depends on the weather out. I guess the weather is better out here. Yeah, I appreciate that, Adam. I knew it wasn't our year, and I really, really felt like this is not the year for the Lakers. No big deal. I'm not gonna. I'm usually like I'm a big basketball fan, and I'm like a wreck when my team loses, and I wasn't a wreck. I understood it. They lost to a better team. By the way, they should have lost by like 35 points. I've never seen a team miss so many wide open threes as Minnesota last night. I mean, these were wide open, and Minnesota could not make a freaking thing, and the Lakers still lost. They deserve to lose. It's what it is. Yeah. Good night because of my Jared Vanderbilt call. Thank you. I felt good about nailing the game. I said they're going to have to play Vanderbilt in this kind of game. I don't know why they didn't earlier in the series, by the way. He is actually somebody who could have made a difference for them earlier in some of the other swingy games. And I think they should have played him more. And I was really happy to get that part right. All right. So you can see we're going to run the Sims here, but ownership is probably going to change pretty heavily from where it was before. Not that Bogdanovich can't have a game tonight, but I think you're going to see the starters out there a lot more. I actually think that, you know what? This is the one I'm missing. Yeah. I want to be up on, I'm way ahead on Norman Powell. Oops. Norman Powell is my play tonight. Again, I keep saying his name and mix things, but let me get him up to where Goldie has him. I think that's right. I think he should be closer to that 28 range. So I actually think that I got to do that on my showdown lineups as well. Anyway, yeah, it's kind of interesting. So I'll have to figure that one out. All right, so we're building. And then I will, of course, hand build my high buy-ins and make sure that the money we're leaving, 47, make it 48. 47 is fine for 2 games. Weird stuff sometimes happens. You never know. You get the monster blowouts we've been seeing lately a little bit. I got the Houston right too last night. That was I thought a pretty good call. That I thought Houston was going to beat the hell out. I gotten Houston right on their only 2 wins that they would win easily both times, and they did. I didn't really make a call when Golden State. I sort of thought Golden State would win the series in 7, maybe 6. But I was happy to get that right. All right, let's run the Sims. And you'll notice on FanDuel it's a little bit different because there's some good center options. The other one that I think, look, Mitch Robinson, you can call it Chasey or whatever, but you don't have guys this cheap that can put up a real number very often. The problem is that center position is tough. So we're going to bump him up a little bit as well. But I'm probably going to have to rerun this again. Let's run it again. Apply. Let's see if that. I don't even want like a ton of them, but I do want some. I mean, he just put up 35 the other night. Let's rebuild one more time. And this is what a lot of the days are now, trying to find the little things you can take away from tonight and making the right changes. I had 80% Vanderbilt in the showdown, and I had like 25% of them in the regular. Those lineups were good, but the other ones couldn't get there. But I was proud of that. I mean, he was like unowned in the other ones. Actually, him as a captain was working out pretty well for a while. It just didn't quite get there in the end. All right, let's see what else we got. Any other questions or thoughts about either of these slates? Happy to go over them with you. And Norman Powell, I'm starting to tell myself even more and more. I think this is the big Norman Powell game. Okay, so Norman Powell and Malik Beasley are my look for the fantasy games. I'm not saying who's going to win these games. My pick would be, I actually think the Knicks might close it out tonight, even though Detroit's been, I think, the better team for most of this series. I think it's really close to calling it, but I have the Knicks. I hope Detroit wins, and I have the Clippers. But I think, there's a pretty big spread there. I do think the Clippers win tonight, for what it's worth. But wow, look at all the Duren we're getting. Okay, interesting. And then we've got some new projections coming in. All right, let's see if that changes anything. Duren with no Stewart, it makes some sense, but I come on. What's being updated so much? Oh, maybe it's Goldie's projection. I shouldn't complain. It's great. I love when we get the updated projections. Yeah. Okay. So let's just see with Mitch Rob where we ended up. I feel okay about this. I actually like we haven't seen the greatest series from Duren, but I think that I do like him. We couldn't even get to Mitch Rob over there. And where are we at with Norman Powell? Okay, we have a ton of Norman Powell. That feels good. Going through it, probably you could argue it's too much Westbrook, but at least we'll have late swap abilities. Everybody, there's a lot of guys in the same price range. So Westbrook, had an insane first half in the last game, and then obviously didn't do a whole lot in the third afterwards. If you play the narrative though, the Denver's trying to come back, and you can see Westbrook sort of off the bench, that mid third quarter, then extended play in the fourth. It's totally possible. I think that's where I'm at. Why did you change the min salary from 47 to 48? I was just thinking oh, okay. Yeah, always happy to answer that question. Yeah, I changed it because it is a 2-game slate with a little more wonkiness, and I'm not doing any min-max exposures, so it's not really going to be an issue. We'll see as I load them that you're going to see that there's basically never going to be 3,000 left on the table anywhere, so it's not going to matter that much. But if I ended up with 1 or 2 lineups like that, it wouldn't. Usually with basketball, you don't want to leave ever that much on the table. I think there's some exceptions on 2-game slates. Now, it is a playoff closeout game, but if you get those massive blowouts like we see sometimes in these playoffs, and let's just go to sport filter, we'll do it just NBA, and I bet you I don't see. Look how much is left on the table. Almost never actually leaving on the table, so it's really not a very big thing. I just like to make some general tweaks that get me different. You're not really getting to that 3,000 number anywhere. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't really matter all that much to me. Also, I'm going to late swap anyway, so that would cancel out that. So that's the only reason. I just, I do it with a little bit more space. I did the same thing for baseball today. I thought it was too tight. It's just too tight. Baseball, it makes more sense to do than it does basketball, obviously. But all right, so we're good there. And then I'm going to remind myself to make sure that I have Norman Powell and some captains in I think I have him a little bit, but not enough. And we'll make Norman Powell. We're going to make him look like a pretty good play because I think that this is my take of the night. I do think Norman Powell has a big game here. Is that enough? Where is he at in terms of value? I didn't feel like doing the math right then. Norman Powell. Even with that, yeah, they did make him more expensive over here. Let's make it. This is definitely high, but I believe in it. I believe in what I'm doing. Okay, I think we're gonna leave it at. Again, it doesn't seem like much. That 2 points, that will change everything. Watch. Is it crazy? No, Danny, it's not, but it's better on smaller slates to fade it because usually on a big slate, you tend to get one team that has that explosive thing. What if everybody scores 5 runs tonight? You could have a 2-2-2-2 stack that gets there. So it's usually better to stick with mostly stacking. On FanDuel, I think you always want the 4-mans. Occasionally the 3-3-2s are okay, or 3-3-1-1s even, but mostly you want the 4-mans. On DraftKings, you really want to try to 5-man stack a little bit more. Batum with no ownership for me, huh? I don't like that. I think that's bad. Batum plays in these freaking games. He's gonna be relevant at least. I bet you we get him when we run the Sims. And I bet you we get to Norman Powell quite a bit. Let's see. My min destination ROI is going to suck. That's fine with me. I don't care. It's so interesting because me and Cheese are close and we do all these things, but we do things so differently. And obviously both ways work for each of us in very different ways. All right. So we have Norman Powell at 43% in the utility. And where do we have him as a captain? 8%. All right, so we've got him at 8% versus 3. I like that we're above the field, I guess. I did bump up Jokic already. We did get a Tiger lineup, and I'll have to address that in a minute. I feel that we should have more Norman Powell. I know this sounds. I just have a feeling this is the night where we get that like 35 fantasy point game from him, and you kind of need him to win. So I'm going to make sure to keep including that. Okay, updated. Okay. And then let's rebuild this again. And then I'll get over to FanDuel in a minute. So the Tigers released their lineup right before lock. It doesn't really matter to me. I might even wait just till right after lock to rerun things. We'll see. I just think there's an argument for this Powell thing. I don't really. I think it's my favorite differentiator thing is to maybe get that Powell captain. He and Jokic, and I bumped Jokic up obviously too. Wait, the Rockies have a new lineup? They already had a lineup out, didn't they? I thought they did. All right, so let's see what we've got. Jokic, Kawhi, Powell. Okay, so 12% Powell, and then I bet you in the utility we're gonna have a bunch of them. Yeah, okay, feels pretty good. Jokic, yikes. You're asking for a very specific path if you don't want Jokic to. Okay, so I can always come back to this later. This doesn't start till 10 Eastern, obviously. I'm going to go real quickly to the FanDuel one and just make sure that I boost Powell up a little bit more. 31%. I'd like to be above the field, not below. I think he has a big game tonight. I'm going to stick with my take. And again, it doesn't seem like much, these few extra points, but that is literally what will make him go from 30% or 40% to like 80% of your lineups. And I think he's a really better play than he's my guy tonight. There is some risk with him occasionally because they run those weird other lineups, but I just think they're going to need some offense. I think he's going to he hasn't played his best basketball in this series by any means, and I think that tonight you get the big experience. We'll see. All right, and then we will update this. I already had made my other tweaks on FanDuel that I wanted to, so I'm pretty good to go over here. And because I've made enough tweaks, I'm starting to think about Danny's question and make it a little closer, which is fine. I think I'm going to end up with it anyway. Norman Powell, my highest owned player. Okay, well, that's before the Sims. Will it be after the Sims? That's the question. And do we have Jokic enough? The problem with having as much of him on FanDuel is, like I said, there's other plays that are pretty interesting. Like at center, you have Duren with no Stewart. You have obviously Cat. You've got Zubac, and you've got Mitch Robb off the bench. All of those are very viable routes. So now we've got all the Norman Powell. You know what? Mostly I'm just playing the lottery over there. Let's roll with it. And also, I'm going to be able to late swap anyway, so I can always change it if I want to. I'm not sure I'm going to want to. I doubt that I will. Oh, God. Dude, this is stupid mother. I'm already locked. I don't get it. I don't like that anything ever locks me up. All right. Choose file. It should still have the newest one. Yep. And then, so we are very Norman Powell is the one we're rooting for tonight, even though I know he's going to have some ownership and stuff. I do think that I can get ahead by just being well over on him and bumping him way up there. Where did we end up with Jokic? It's just rough because there's other centers. Well, we'll see about the late swapping. But as of right now, it's going to be tough because I've got all the Duren. Is this projection a little aggressive for Duren? Feels like it. But he's just feels safe enough to where he's always like not going to hurt you. Maybe foul trouble. I guess he could hurt you that way. But that's where we're at. All right. So going back real quick, and now we've got 5 minutes to edit with Detroit stuff because we don't have Jace Jung or Kerry Carpenter. Oh no, we don't have the guy who hits a home run literally every day, which also means pinch hit risk comes into play. So we are going to rebuild. And let's see where we end up. Not going to have a lot of time to change it before lock, but I can always change it after lock anyway. I sometimes like these little baseball slates because I have a very standard way to get different, and I like that. And literally, I'll just what I usually do is just run it with Goldie's. I thought it said Isaiah Pacheco for a minute. I'll usually just run it with Goldie or Sheets' projections, and that's the way to go. And for those of you who don't see Sheets' projections on here, doesn't mean they're not up. They're probably up on the actual site where we have our projections over there. So if you want to do that, that's another thing to keep in mind. But really check out the pay dirt stuff too. Again, you don't want to overwhelm your mind and let SaberSim do a lot of the work, but you do want to think about interesting pivots, especially if you're for hand builders and things like that. But even still, even for the others, min-maxing in baseball is completely fine with me. Doing it in basketball just doesn't work. It doesn't mean it never has worked, but it just doesn't work in general. Not enough for me to trust it. I can never get it to do what I want. All right, we're running the sim. Watch how much these are going to change this pitching. It's going to be like completely the opposite. Except for Barrios will be the most popular pitcher they'll give me. I just know Saber Sim at this point. All right, let's see. Yeah, Barrios, Kikuchi. All right. And then the stacks. We're all over Detroit because they're cheap now. All right, here we go. And we are going to save the contests. And wait till late swap. All right, 342. Boom. And just to double check to see our guys are definitely playing, we'll just do a quick scroll through and make sure. Not that many lineups today. And that's where we're at. Anyway, I appreciate all you guys for being for tuning in, and good luck to everybody tonight.